It's been a long time coming, but as of this review, I've finally reached the current, as of time of writing, end of the mainline Ace Attorney games. Don't worry, I've got the investigations and great Ace Attorney games lined up already. It's been an enjoyable journey for the most part. It's wonderfully easy to see why Capcom's anime lawyer 'em up remains a popular fixture in the wider gaming hive mind. In my post-game research, I found that Spirit of Justice doesn't have quite as universal support as some of the other Ace Attorney titles. While its critic reviews were broadly positive, online it definitely has its detractors. This came as a bit of a surprise, but I wonder if people are broadly more predisposed to be critical of endings, as trilogies wrap and the writers try to tie loose ends and story threads hastily together. You're listening to the almighty Backlog. I'm Ellie, and today's review is on Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Spirit of Justice. Available for 3DS, Android, iOS, PC, PS4, Switch and Xbox One. This review is based on the PlayStation 4 version. Originally released in June of 2016, developed and published by Capcom, it's a visual novel, adventure, puzzle mix. How Long to Beat has an average playtime of around 38 hours. It's a little bittersweet coming to the end of the mainline Ace Attorney games. Phoenix Wright has, of course, over the years become an iconic character, but he's also undergone quite a lot of exciting growth within his own games. I remain a little in awe of the bold choice made by Capcom to set his second trilogy far enough after the first that we get to see Phoenix and his allies in more mature roles. Phoenix himself has wavered in importance in this set of games, going from jaded background mentor in Apollo Justice to restored and full of vigour in his return to court in Dual Destinies. In Spirit of Justice, then, it makes sense that he's more intensely put through the ringer by placing him in a position rarely seen for lawyers in this franchise: mortal peril. Phoenix, you see, travels in this game to the kingdom of Khura'in. It's a far-off mountainous land and home to the ability to channel the spirits of the dead, a recurring power in the series. Typically, it's done by Phoenix's longtime assistant Maya Fey, and indeed he's jetted off to Khura'in in order to meet her as she reaches the end of a period of intense training in the country. However, it wouldn't be an Ace Attorney game without something going wrong immediately, and so no sooner has Phoenix touched down when he finds his guide, a young lad named I'll Be Your Guide. Yes, the punny names are back and more eye-rolling than ever, accused of murder and grand larceny of a priceless national treasure. Phoenix obviously leaps into action, but quickly finds himself on the back foot. In his haste, he fails to realise that Khura'in has an even more twisted justice system than the one he's used to. For a start, the presence of a tyrannical law named the Defence Culpability Act means that attorneys who fail to successfully defend their clients suffer the same fate as them, meaning that in defending Al-B, Phoenix inadvertently puts his own life on the line. Secondly, because Khura'in is a deeply religious nation that reveres its royal family for their ability to use the country's famed channeling magic, trials are built around the use of a ritual known as the divination seance, in which the court is shown the last sights of the victim, and that is in turn interpreted to the court by the royal princess. Thanks to both of these, Khura'in's lawyers are all but gone, and trials invariably result in guilty verdicts. Undeterred, Phoenix presses on, challenging Khura'in's court. In the process, he learns that the nation is teetering on the brink of civil unrest due to the presence of a rebel militia, the Defiant Dragons, who threaten the ruling regime for their having instituted the country's brutal legal system 2 decades prior. It adds up to a more politically dense plot than the series tends to go for, as Phoenix has to contend not just with a corrupt judicial system and bonkers magic aspects to the prosecution, but also the state's manipulation of an internal rebel threat and the clear undercurrent of internalized hatred against his job, mixed with, a dose of distrusting foreigners. In my playthrough of the series, only the first Ace Attorney Investigations game has so far tried to touch on anything even remotely close to this. But I suppose it makes sense for this game to raise the stakes so dramatically, since this is one of the few arenas that the main series hasn't touched prior. However, Phoenix isn't the only attorney in this game. After all, we've still got his protege Apollo Justice and new prodigy Athena Sykes here as well. They've been left to hold the fort back home, so they get their own little cases to solve as well, if for no other reason than to reuse their trademark mechanics from their respective games. That's Apollo's Perceive and Athena's Mood Matrix. These sequences don't show up much in the game, at least not compared to Dual Destinies, so they feel a bit more like half-baked cameo mechanics rather than a core part of Spirit of Justice. That's a bit of a shame because they're usually quite fun, but I suppose given that they, like the divination seances, are broadly just ways to extend cross-examination, I can understand not over-featuring them. If there is a problem I have here, it's that Spirit of Justice likes to really sideline the women in this game, in particular Athena. In Dual Destinies, she is a proper major character. She leads cases, she's a viewpoint character, her backstory is explored across the game, and ultimately the final trial is a showcase of her skills, integrating her into the Wright law officers as an equal part of a trio. Annoyingly though, here she is shoved to the side. During the first at-home case, Apollo takes the lead, not in itself a problem, but for the second, Apollo is absent, leaving Athena as the primary attorney during the trial. Great in theory, and I'm a big fan of the returning presence of the wonderfully fun Simon Blackquill, who winds up joining her on the attorney's bench in opposition to the game's primary prosecutor, Sadmadi. However, rather than a chance to showcase Athena's talents, she spends the majority of the trial being belittled by her opponent and constantly shown up by her friend, making her out to be a bumbling amateur who needs older men to help her out. To really stick the boot in, Athena is forced to sit on the sidelines for the climax, while Apollo and Phoenix get to share the spotlight together, a particularly egregious example of erasure given the finale of the previous game had all three on the bench. I also want to take a moment to talk about the prosecutor Sadmadi. A Khura'in native, he shows up in the second case to function as the game's main opposition. He's a far cry from some of the other prosecutors the series has had, where some like Godot or Blackquill were loud, forceful characters, he is instead a serene monk. He embodies a lot of the worst qualities of the Khura'in mindset, wielding his religion like an objective truth and heaping scorn down on the attorneys. He is, without a doubt, my least favourite prosecutor in the series that we've yet seen. The franchise has had some quirky characters across from us in court, from the arrogant Edgeworth of the first game, to the obviously evil Manfred von Karma, to the oddball Godot or the bombastic samurai wannabe Blackquill. But all of them have at least had something fun about them. Sadmadi bucks this trend by being simply unlikable. He's slimy and mean in a way that the other ones never quite manage, and his constant sniping remarks felt far more exhausting to sit through than any other prosecutor. There's an effort to give him some backstory later in the game, but it's too little too late. I shan't be sorry if he never crops up again. Once you dig into the gameplay of Spirit of Justice, it is of course business as usual for an Ace Attorney game. Each chapter is, as always, split between investigation and trial phases. The former are a blend of visual novel and point-and-click adventure, with your characters wandering around any areas related to the crime at hand and scouring it for clues to use in court. Forensic scientist Emma Skye makes a first return since Apollo Justice Ace Attorney as the requisite recurring member of the police force to assist during investigations, and as per her specialty, we do occasionally, very occasionally, get to do some forensic themed minigames like spraying a scene with luminol or manipulating a 3D object to find clues. I'd prefer if these showed up more often in order to break up the point-and-click sections, particularly the latter. Much like in Dual Destinies, crime scenes often have multiple viewpoints to see from in order to uncover more of what transpired. The trials also work as expected, albeit with the new addition of the divination seances. The seances themselves come at the outset of the trial phase as the Crown Princess, Rafa, does her ritual dance to summon the last visions of the deceased. This adds a new component to the series, video reviews. The last sight of the victims gets shown to the court with specific emotions popping up in different size fonts depending on the intensity of each one at that moment. Afterwards, Rafa offers up her interpretation of events, giving us a set of statements to compare against the seance vision. Phoenix must pick these interpretations apart, leveraging what Rafa thinks happened against the evidence in the vision itself by scrubbing through the quote-unquote footage and pinpointing when what is seen or felt contradicts what Rafa says. It's similar to the Mood Matrix in that it's essentially a marginally more complicated variant on the usual cross-examination formula. Much like Trials and Tribulations, there's a serious effort made to expand the story as the game ramps up to its ending. Characters from all across the Apollo Justice trilogy, which is games 4, 5 and 6 if you're keeping score, never minding that 2 out of 3 of those are named for Phoenix, are pulled into the last case for typically brief cameos, which always feels like a pleasant reward for having played all the games thus far. There are 2 separate fantastic trial sequences, the first of which features a brilliant twist that almost makes up for it, repeating a trial setup from an earlier game, while the second takes constant twists and turns in true Ace Attorney fashion, Just when you think you're down and out, the game pulls a fast one, and there's at least one part of the finale that rivals the biggest wait what moments in the series to date. It's this that I will choose to remember of Spirit of Justice more than anything. For all the faults that I think it has, and there are a few, if there's one thing the Ace Attorney games excel at, it's bringing all of its disparate and weird plot threads together into one big satisfying conclusion. This is true both for individual games, but also for the trilogies we're given, as both the Phoenix Wright and Apollo Justice sets come together in huge, bombastic, drama-laden ways. I wouldn't have that any other way. It's all nonsense anime lore fights, but that's the heart of Ace Attorney's charm. Spirit of Justice, then, is a worthy ending to this second trilogy. While I think Dual Destinies remains a stronger game, this one is still very fun, and the decision to up the stakes and introduce a new setting works very much in its favour. I'm not sure where the main series goes from here, or even if it returns ever, but these 6 games have been great while they've lasted. The final score is 5 out of 7. Great! Fine stuff. A game that doesn't make the top echelon of games, but sparkles regardless and holds the interest expertly. Make the time to play this. This has been Ellie on the Almighty Backlog. You can support this project by reading the review over on thealmightybacklog.wordpress.com, or by listening to the pod review hosted on RSS and YouTube. Please feel free to follow me over on Mastodon, Blue Sky and/or Backlogged by following the links on the blog. If you'd like to support the show financially, you can do so by donating via PayPal to thealmightybacklog@gmail.com or by hitting the donate button on the blog. Thank you for listening, and have a lovely day.